Okay. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon to colleagues, friends, sahabat-sahabat in CILT. Today we are having our first session webinar series on sustainability, green logistics to be more specific. Okay. What you call and the initiatives, and today we will be discussing on what is it all about. What do you mean by green logistics? In fact, a few minutes ago we were chatting, we were talking about different people take to mean green, to mean different things. Okay. Now, without further ado, because I always have this tendency, because not today I'm moderating this whole session with you. Otherwise, I'll be speaking as though I am giving a keynote address. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our international president, Datuk TS, Datuk Radzak Malek, my ex-colleague with Malaysian Railways for such a long time. Okay, to kick off, okay, our webinar today and launch this series on green logistics. Without further ado, I don't think it needs further introduction. Datuk Radzak, are you there? Bye. Please.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Datuk TS Radzak Malek. All yours, Datuk.
Thank you, Prof. Khaeruddin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. TS Haji Ramli Amir, Presiden CILT Malaysia. Datuk Dr. Muhammad Yusoff Sulaiman, Chairman Green Logistics Webinar Series and CEO IIRMACS. Datuk Dr. Amin Kassim, Panelist and Chairperson CILT Selangor Section. Congratulations, Datuk Amin. Mr. Nadhir Ashafiq, Panelist and Co-founder the Lorry.com. Welcome. Mr. David Zone, Panelist and Director High-Tech Waste Management, a new partner in logistics, perhaps after this. My friend from CILT International, Keith Newton, the Secretary General, thank you for coming and joining. Last but not least is Professor Khaeruddin Sudharmin, Moderator and CLTM Exam Board Chairman. Not to forget also Madam Reshma, who are our host today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and pleasure to address this Green Logistics webinar. It is also a pleasure to share with you my passion for green technology and sustainability. Let me also emphasize how particularly meaningful it is to be here in CILT Malaysia webinar, which has been a place where I started my professional career in rail transportation and where I started my CILT journey in the last 20 years. I am where I am here because of Malaysia. Firstly, let me introduce who we are in 2021. Our institute was founded in 1919 with a mission to improve industry practices and nurture talent. We are 101 years now, and in Malaysia, it has been here for 56 years since. Today, we support over 35,000 members in 37 countries. This year, 14 May, we welcome our 36th branch, CILT Korea. And in November 2020, our 37th branch, the latest was established in Rwanda. Through our educational suite, our strong community and our commitment to high standards, we help professionals to develop their careers and access better jobs. We are the leading professional body who work for supply chain, logistics, and transport. We are a global family representing professionals at all levels across all sectors. We have a mission to give individuals and organizations access to the tools, the knowledge, and the connection vital to success in the logistics and transport industry. CILT, after successfully serving the industry for the last 100 years, we need to be relevant for the next century. Early last year, I lined up my 5 focus areas during my term as the international president. They are as below. 1, inclusivity and care for every members, partners, and associates. CILT member countries to participate actively in supporting the mission and vision of CILT International by creating open platform and communication by means of video conferencing. This is what we are doing today. Internet, TV, and YouTube. It is about sharing and caring. Number 2, green technology and sustainability. Sustainability and green agenda, a responsibility and privileged role to play, creating a friendly environment for the future of our planet and our generation. Number 3, uncharted territories. In the spirit of Stronger Together, we are exploring the uncharted territories, expanding CILT into the Francophone countries, Arabs, Russian, Europe, Japanese, and Latin Americas. WILAT had been actively pursuing this, and as a result, from 13 November 2020 to date, induction of WILAT took place in Bangladesh, Madagascar, Egypt, Turkey, Indonesia, Oman, Fiji, and Central Asia. That is Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan, including Afghanistan, but not Hindustan. Best practices in managing crisis. In view of the present challenges, CILT believes strict adhering to best practices in managing the crisis and disaster and adapting at the quickest time, the new normal and the new reality as a way forward. Special thanks to all of you that have replied to our COVID-19 impact survey. Digitization, last but not least, is digitization industry 4.0. My focus will touch on key mission of the Institute to provide accessible and high quality, embracing digitalization and IR 4.0 in education globally. These are the essence of the new institute in the new era and a way forward in the next century. Of course, the Malaysian chapter, the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport in Malaysia, we all know it as CILTM, was founded in 1965 to fulfill the need for qualified locals in the field of logistics and transport after independence and in tandem with the increasing demand of logistics services. Ladies and gentlemen, as the CILT International President, I have been leading the organization through a difficult period globally. This no doubt is impacting you all too in the logistic and transport environment all over. In dealing with the issues, there also arise opportunities. My message has been that failure is not an option in sorting out the problems and that control and collective actions need to be taken. So we have shared best practice and experiences with each other and build solutions together. This also leads us to focus on the opportunities and how we will successfully take advantage of this in 2021 and the future. Never had logistics and transport been so critical to the success and well-being of mankind as in this year. We have responsibilities as professionals in providing the best possible input into some very big issues for the world. To do that, we are in CILT focusing on key issues in the global supply chain, sustainability, and the technology to reduce our impact on the environment. Best practice in crisis and risk management and the embracing of digital technology to create effective solutions. As CILT, we are uniquely placed to have professionals deliver these things as we cover the world and are constantly creating new branches in new regions. We operate with inclusivity, caring, and supporting our professional members wherever they are. More than that, as COVID-19 lingers on with no sign of subside, the issue at hand now is about life and livelihood to our members, families, associates, and partners all over. We at CILT International will devote our time, energy, and mind to find ease and comfort for them, especially at the time more and more difficulty and challenge that they have to endure. Yesterday was our last webinar on impact of COVID entitled the UK grocery sector response to COVID-19 challenges. In our series of webinars, we are now moving from the COVID to the post-COVID world and begin next month a key series on sustainability. As always in green technology and sustainability campaigns, CILT Malaysia has been first at all times. I like to take the opportunity to congratulate, especially WILAT Malaysia, who had done their bit to support the campaign with the international virtual run in collaboration with College University Islam Selangor, Green WILAT's Kitchen, their signature activities under We Inspire, International Green Campaign organized by University Malaysia Kelantan, and a webinar today that manifests the good things that you all had done. For that, thank you so much. Sustainability is the single most important subject for the post-COVID logistics and transport world, and is a challenge that exceeds that of COVID itself. It may not have the same immediate impact, but longer term, it poses questions and issues that we must face as an industry. On 27 March is the Earth Hour. We will at Global, we want to drive this as an initiative because sustainability is always our high priority. Thanks to WILAT Global for your strong patience and strong support on green technology and sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you today about our focus on sustainability. Logistics and transport in many countries are the principal areas of concern when we look at carbon reduction, whilst energy sources and the burning of carbon fuels obviously are the prime source of carbon. In logistics and transport, the use of vehicles and the dependency of international movements of goods and people are all significant contributors to the major problem society faces. We have to talk about our future. Climate change is a clear and present danger to our planet. And in response, we as professionals must change the way we operate. Sustainability and the green agenda come with many challenges, but also many opportunities. We as an institute must work hard to keep our members informed and make sure we are best placed to meet those challenges and ensure a sustainable future for all. In CILT, we are leaders in our profession and we are determined to act as leaders. We have started our I Am campaign encouraging professionals to take a stand and commit as individuals to solving the climate problem in our sector. Members of CILT Malaysia have been at the forefront of that campaign already, putting their names and the photos to statements of commitment in tackling climate change. These statements and photos are going global and are driving fellow professionals to stand with us. We are planning to hold a series of webinars and encouraging the sharing of research and best practice globally in the area of sustainability. That will drive changes in behaviors and practice across the logistics and transport world. We do not have a choice in this if we are to avoid later catastrophe and action that will be too late. Please do be partners in this endeavor. Join with us in raising our voice in the industry and sharing examples as how we can change industry practices and individuals' habits. I would like to particularly cite one of our green technology posts from Vincent McCarthy, a transport planner from National Transport Authority in Ireland. Vincent has provided us with this statement, which he has launched on social media over the last couple of months. Sustainable, he said, I quote, sustainable mobility is causing me to consider if a trip is necessary, and if it is, how can I get from door to door without negatively impacting others? Vincent McCarthy, Transport Planner, National Transport Authority, Ireland. As a transport planner, I need to understand that sustainable mobility is not the same for everybody, he added. Since that post, we are grateful that we have received similar quotations and statements from members of CILT from Europe, Africa, Central Asia, subcontinent, Asia, ASEAN, and definitely Malaysia too. Our very own Secretary General, T.S. Hajanasi alias, in his IIRMACS, came out with the word like green is a new black. Green is a new black as the world races to switch to green fuel from black. Carbon fuel, the transport and logistic industries must not be left behind. Instead, we should lead and be done through it. Place people different, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Everyone's contribution will Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.
We're having a little bit of a bandwidth problem. I hope everybody is with us.
Dato Radzak is the second international president and to summarize what official
Presiden yang berbahagia Datuk Abdul Razak Malek for introducing CILT and for launching this call in bringing the issues to light by adopting strategies like putting up images and themes in all our communication channels and now this webinar to ensure that the message is spread across far and wide. That is how important issues on greening and sustainability is for us and the future generations of mankind to benefit. Just for your information, the CILT fraternity is, as what Dato Radzak mentioned, we are in more than 37 countries now, with more to join officially before the year end. Even here in Malaysia, we now have 9 branches or sections, as we call it. The latest 2 being Kuala Lumpur section and Selangor section, which is helmed by Dato Dr. Amin Kassim, who is here as panelist today. Okay? I also noticed Keith Newton is here. Keith is CILT International Secretary General. Hi Keith, thank you for joining. To our esteemed chair, Dato Dr. Muhammad Yusoff Sulaiman, panelists Dato Dr. Amin, Mr. David Zone, and Encik Nadhir Ashafiq, we thank you very much for taking time today in support of such a noble cause. We appreciate the sharing of your thoughts on this. To you, ladies and gentlemen, respected participants, thank you for being with us, supporting our series of webinars, and the opportunity in learning on some of the beneficial pointers that will be highlighted by our panelists. Of course, to our most able, loyal, and charismatic moderator, and in Professor Khaeruddin Sudharmin, thank you yet again for providing the soul to the issues to be discussed today. You are the man. So as an opener to the webinar, I would like to throw some basic highlights that surrounds issues on greening and sustainability, as it is expected that our panelists will focus and share with us on specific areas that their expertise and experience bring. So, bringing you back to some education, from the perspective of transport geography, issues on the environment that tags along with it would include things like transportation and energy, land use and the environment, transport and environmental management, social and environmental responsibility, future of transportation systems, and of course, the resultant requirement for transport planning and policy. Those who had the opportunity of taking our professional qualifying exam would note that these issues are well reflected in many of the core papers, including the module on transport planning and policy. So the exposure to these issues are well within the grasp of the students. Green logistics has become a catchword in the transportation industry. It grew out of the emerging awareness of environmental problems and negative externalities, which started in the 1950s when the fast growth of trucking impacted urban communities. Factors such as truck size, emissions, and noise became public concerns, leading to legislations focusing on pollutant and noise emissions and road access conditions. In a more recent context, well-publicized issues such as sustainability, energy waste disposal, and climate change have contributed to establishing green logistics as a formal field of inquiry and mitigation. The transportation industry was recognized as a major contributor to environmental issues through its modes, infrastructures, and the distribution flows. Logistics is seen as an opportunity for the transportation industry to become more environmentally friendly. Greenness and logistics has become code words for a range of environmental concerns. When put together, the two words suggest an environmentally friendly and efficient transport and distribution system. Supply chain management practices and strategies aim to reduce the environmental and energy footprint of freight distribution. It focuses on material handling, waste management, packaging, and transport. Green logistics covers several dimensions related to production planning, materials management, and physical distribution. It opens the door to a wide array of potential application of environmentally friendly strategies along the supply chains. This implies, of course, that different stakeholders could be applying different strategies, all of which are labeled as green logistics. One corporation could be focusing on product packaging, while another on alternative fuel vehicles. Both are undertaking green logistics. However, a closer look at the concept and its applications, a great many paradoxes and inconsistencies arise, which suggest that its application may be more difficult than what might have been expected in the first place. Although there has been much debate about what green logistics truly entails, the transportation industry has developed a very narrow and specific interest in the issue. For example, if transportation costs are reduced and assets such as vehicles, terminals, and distribution centers are better utilized, the assumption is that green logistics strategies are being implemented. That's about it. Ladies and gentlemen, that much I'm able to say as a generalist to the subject matter. Now, time to join the expert. But before I go, allow me to recite a short poem by one Paulo Yang. Here goes. Piles of junk across the streets, but people just walk and pass by with their feet. Fields of green, now fields of doom. Oh, how I hope my child can see it bloom. Rivers of life, now rivers of death. When I see it, I can't catch my breath. Forests are where animals can breed. But trees are all gone because of greed. There must be something that we can still do. But do you still care with the things around you? Always remember that God counts on you. So give Mother Nature life that's brand new. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bapak President TH Tuan Haji Ramli Amir for the launching of our webinar today. Okay, I actually, while listening to Dr. Radzak and then listening to Tuan Haji Ramli, I have a lot of things actually I wanted to comment, but I thought I will leave it later since I'm watching the time as well. So before we start the discussion and before I call upon the first panelist to give his views, perhaps I may like to, if you don't mind, if you would allow me, to quickly look at the big picture and so that we will all be on the same page. Let's look at the objectives of what we hope to achieve today after listening, while we listen later on when they speak about the topic today. Number one is awareness of impact logistic activities have on climate change. Climate change, that's the word. We have been talking a lot about it. We have the 17 SDG, Sustainability Development Goals of the United Nations, and people have been talking about it for what, more than 2 decades now, about the what you call warnings given by scientists. Okay, I remember one of my former vice chancellors of the University of Hull. He is a glaciologist. Okay, and his research he has been warning us for a long time now, but people don't seem to pay attention. But look, now it has become the most important thing. So it's not fetish, it's not what they call flavor of the month thing. It's not what you call something that somebody talks about it and it will be, it's not a fashionable thing. It is something real. And sometimes, in fact, most times, it takes a real crisis to get things done. I'm sure Dato TS Radzak will agree with me that he says this often too in these other webinars. This was said by the CEO of DHL Express. He said that a lot of things that we took us 10 years to do, now because of the pandemic, because of the COVID, we are able to do it in 1 year. Things that we took 5-6 years to do, now we're able to do it in 5 and 6 months. So coming back to this green logistics, it is something that is doable, and it's something that we need to pay attention to. Quickly, again, number 2, hopefully today we will identify areas where sustainable, okay, measures that can be taken, something that is economic and easy to implement. And number 3, we will explore some methods to quantify green initiatives mentioned by both, again, our presidents. Carbon emission levels, reduction of carbon footprints, adoption of renewable source of energy, okay, blah, blah, blah. And that can be built into our organizations and embedded again into the economic, health and social goals. Which reminds me again, in many of the classes that I had over the last 5-10 years, most of the business school books, the mantra is the 3P, and a lot of people forget. The minute they go out, they become CEO, they forgot about it. The most important thing is the 3P, which is the planet, the people, and the profit. So now is the time. If we take care of our planet, okay, and we take care of our people in our organization, the profits will come, okay? Now, and number 4, we will again discuss the possibilities of government aid in terms of tax, benefits, grant, whatever. And then probably we will hear later on, this I think I will leave to Dato Dr. Mohd Yusoff from MIT, who's our chairman today, okay, to give his views, okay, and share with us. I'm sure he's got a lot there to share with us. What is it that we can do? What are the initiatives? What are the the benefits that we can derive from the government, especially some of us in the, or in fact most of us from the private sector. Okay, again, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I'd like now to call upon our first speaker, Mr. Nadhir, the Lorry guy, to give his 15 minutes presentation, his view about what it is green logistics, what it means to him, and what are some of the things that he is trying to do to achieve these objectives. Bro, Nadhir, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, all yours, bro.
Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon, everyone. To honored guests and to all the panelists, good afternoon. Hope we can have a really good session today. I think today, since we had a really good overview from the international president, so I probably won't go in deep detail as to what ESG means, or environmental or sustainability means. So I think safe to say that at the end of the day, green is good, right? So that's the first point I would like to put forward. Green is good. But maybe before we go into dive deeper into how we implement green themes into our business, perhaps I could introduce our business just a little bit. So what is the Lorry? The Lorry is a logistics platform where we connect customers, whether it be corporate or individuals, to essentially driver partners, right? And how we do this is through the power of technology and the power of data. And our population of driver partners, which is now about 13,000 strong in 4 countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, and Singapore, about 80% to 85% are what we call owner-operators, i.e. these are the individuals who have their own vehicle or their trucks or vans, and they are the ones driving the trucks themselves. Why we like to work with them is because they are very, very committed to their work and very passionate about their job. And I guess the beauty about a logistics platform like ours is, first of all, we're asset light. And number two, we also provide not just a platform for them to get jobs, right? We provide a platform for them to get benefits, additional benefits. So if you can see in my slide here, right, we are talking about providing financing to our driver partners. So our driver partners could actually get payment faster, for number one. We also help them get back cheaper fuel by partnering with oil companies. We also partner with workshop companies to get better spare parts, to get better breakdown services and the like. So basically what we're trying to do here is to build a really, really strong ecosystem. We are working with over 4,000 corporate customers, and the biggest vertical that we are working on right now is essentially e-commerce, right? So e-commerce have seen a boom, right? Especially thanks to COVID. Our volumes basically grew 4 times, 5 times, and we had to move warehouses or sorting centers twice last year, right? Just because of the boom in volumes. And we also are of the opinion that you know, it's a secular trend, i.e., it will be a trend to stay. Nine digital services will stay on. I assume he's from the UK. So in the UK, there's something called return loads, or what you call it, load board. So for truckers to actually post up their trips. Hey, I'm traveling from X to Y, empty, and hey, I'm ready and willing to accept cargo. We tried to implement this in Malaysia, and I would say the experimentation failed a little bit. We couldn't get the traction, right? Because the current way that transporters find backhaul cargo is through WhatsApp. What they will do is they will just say, hey, I'm traveling empty from here to here, and start spamming all of their WhatsApp groups. And that is the least friction way for them to do it. And if we tell them, hey, you know, here's a system, use it, it's actually very, very high friction. So we couldn't get the incentive to get them to actually post up these loads. So yeah, and of course, why is it green, right? Of course, a truck that's traveling empty without any cargo, you know, of course, it's burning, you know, fuel. And of course, if we can find a system that can actually match, right, the correct cargo with the right specifications, the right type of truck, the right timing, the right date, right, to the truck traveling empty, I think we will see less trucks on the road, right? I think that overall will actually contribute to the green theme. Point number 2, paperless. When we started the company, you know, we've always thought that, you know, paper is not something that we want to do at all, right? And we have made it a point that as much as possible, we will offer, right? We will offer a paperless service to our customers. And of course, it's actually very difficult, if I can be honest, right? When we speak to multinational corporations, the FMCG corporations, we talk to industrial corporations, we talk to F&B, you know, delivery order or proof of delivery is actually very, very important. Not just for their operations, for their operational flow, but for audit and legal reasons, right? So this is something that I've tried. You know, I've tried to speak to certain government agencies, and we have tried to speak to, I guess, government agencies and also the government themselves to say, hey, can we digitalize some of these processes? And the answer that I get is it's actually quite difficult to do it due to legal reasons. Right? But if we can do it, and in fact, you know, Spain have done it, UK have done it, i.e. they accept digital signatures as proof of delivery. In Malaysia, unfortunately, it's something that we're still working on. And perhaps, you know, if the ladies and gentlemen in CILT could push for this, I think it will be very, very fantastic for the industry overall, right? Thing number 3 is route optimization. Route optimization is a very interesting application, which we have here at the Lorry. It's quite simply saying, hey, I have to deliver 100 items, 100 parcels to 10 different locations. What's the fastest route to get there, right? And also the order based on clustering that will make the most sense. And based on our studies and also our simulations, using our algorithm, we could actually save our drivers, you know, 50% in terms of kilometers traveled. And imagine how much fuel we'll actually save just by having such applications. And that in itself is already a green, green initiative. Queue management, right? So if perhaps you understand that as a transporter, as a logistics company, one of the pain points that we have is when we go to, say, warehouses, when we go to shopping malls. I'll give you, in Malaysia, we have a shopping mall called Sunway Pyramid. Sunway Pyramid, they will only accept goods between 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., right? And of course, there will be queues of trucks, lining up to deliver their goods. And of course, when they're idling, they switch on their engine, right? And that's, of course, not a green behavior. If we can create a very simple system to ensure that, okay, you know, they take a ticket, take a number so that they will just arrive at the particular time, I think it would save a lot of fuel, and also, of course, in terms of making the whole process more green. Second last, green warehousing. You know, of course, we're looking at not just not using paper, right? So the end-to-end process from scanning to collecting information from the drivers, all the way until the pallets, the choice of pallets that we use, right? The forklift that we use, whether it's electric or gas. You know, I think if there was some incentive, right, for warehouses in Malaysia or even, you know, Southeast Asia, for them to adopt green, I think that would just increase the adoption of such things overall. And of course, you know, using plastic pallet versus wood pallet, I think that would you know, plastic pallet is much lighter. It will enable the forklifts to carry it at a much easier pace, and of course, will save fuel. And of course, it's much more green per se versus wood, right? I think that would do wonders. And of course, last but not least, is I think a trend for the past 1 year or 2 years or so, which is electric vehicles, right? I think we see a lot of these companies coming up in the US, where they use hydrogen to fuel trucks, and of course we see this even in Tesla, one of the largest car makers nowadays in terms of market capitalization. They also releasing their own trucks, and of course, you know, if these electric vehicles, electric trucks will come to Malaysia, I think it will lead to the overall greening of Malaysia. And I think you have to just go to China to experience it. You know, a lot of people say that China, you know, 10 years back was quite polluted, right? But when they made the switch to electric bikes, to electric cars, I think you could see that, you know, some places in China are really, really nice and really beautiful in terms of air quality. So I think Malaysia should adopt that as well. So yeah, those are my 6 points in terms of how digital and technology can actually contribute to green logistics. Of course, I would think that question and answer will be later. Is that right, Reshma?
Yes. Thank you, Nadhir. Yeah. Very interesting, illuminating. Just nice. You are doing it in the exact time that we have allocated you. If there's at all one thing that I picked up, from what you've said was, which I think the CILT should also pick this up. Bapak Presiden Tuan Haji Ramli, the digital signature. So that's a job for us if it's not already done. Okay. Without further ado again, I'd like now to move on to our second panelist, Mr. David Zone. Okay, he is going to share with us some, from someone coming from the waste management industry, which is very interesting actually. Okay, I'd like to hear what he has to say. David, all yours.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Ms. Resma, for inviting me. And welcome to everybody to listen to a little bit about our story. In today's webinar, we call it the Green Logistics and Sustainable Initiatives. We'll keep things simple, short and sweet by jumping straight into a problem that we see very often in the logistics sector. Okay, so all right, can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, yes, David can see it. Can you put the slideshow on, David?
Slideshow.
Right at the bottom of the screen, yeah.
Hold on now. Okay, is that right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so basically, I think most people know that for every liter of diesel that is burnt in the truck, you generate about 2.5 kgs of carbon dioxide. All right, so when we talk about carbon footprint, this is the thing we are referring to. So if you talk about trucking, every time a truck uses 1 liter of fuel, it's going to emit about 2.5 kgs of carbon into the atmosphere. So if you talk about a regular truck with a fuel tank of about maybe 250 liters, over a year, you're looking at maybe 0.5 ton of carbon dioxide that's going up into the atmosphere. So to minimize carbon dioxide emission, as our former panelist rightly mentioned, it would be the aim to carry as much load as is legally permitted, all right? However, as far as waste is concerned, many warehouses engage contractors who charge a lump sum for waste disposal. So we are talking about many of these waste trucks moving in and out of warehouses that are actually partially full. So if you talk about a normal waste truck like ours, a bin will probably contain 0.5 ton to maybe 1 ton of solid waste, uncompressed. So the idea that I'm putting forth here is that we need to find a solution so that we can maximize every load that goes out. So I know you guys are talking about a very macro picture. So I'm now zeroing in on right at the tail end where, you know, we handle one of the world's oldest professions after the other one. Okay. So this is a typical scene at a warehouse loading bay. So if you look at here, we have a waste container that's got a lot of waste inside, and it's relatively unsorted. So if you were to weigh the weight of the waste that's in this container, we are looking at maybe 0.5 ton, maximum 1 ton, all right? Because it's very light. So if you were to study the content, you would see that there are quite a lot of recyclables in this container, right? So most of the time in the warehouse, they'll just get a contractor, take this away. They will probably take it to some site that they have rented. They'll sort the material out. And then after extracting what they want, the residues may go to an illegal dump site because a lot of these contractors are just fly-by-night operators and they don't really care where the waste goes. All right. So what we are proposing, we are proposing to do is after you consider what are the greener initiatives or the other ways that you can handle your waste, you can make it mandatory for workers at each warehouse location to sort the waste into categories such as cardboard and paper, plastic shrink wrap, plastic strapping, and then category called others. Where possible, you need to have compaction machines to press the recyclables into bales. And then you store the bales until there are enough volume to sell, and only the non-recyclables will go to landfill. Now, very often, warehouse operators will say that, you know, it's too expensive, you don't want to bother, nobody knows what to do. But actually now the government is now forcing this on all waste generators in the form of a law. In Malaysia now there's a law called Act 672, where you need to segregate your waste on site. That means you have to document the weights of all the different categories of materials. And in the future, you have to submit this to the government as proof that you have actually segregated your waste on site. Okay, so in our case, we like our customers to engage us to document the weights. Now, where those customers of ours have got huge volumes of waste, we sell the material that we recover on their behalf, and then we provide them a monthly report so that they can actually use it for their audit purposes. So this is a view of one of our customers' locations, where you can see that we have some workers that are actually sorting out waste materials. So we have plastics here. At the back, you see all these books and papers. And over here, if you look at it, this is a machine that can actually compress recyclables into bales. Now, the reason why we need to compress is because in a lot of cases, if you were to ask a waste or recycler to come to your location to pick up waste, he will say, you pay me because I have to send it back to my place and get my workers to do the sorting. But if you have a machine like this, you compress it into the various categories, and then the buyer will be more willing to drop by to pick it up and actually pay you for it. Okay. So over here, you will see that after we have put the materials into the machine, we have what we call bales. So over here, you can see bales of cardboard, plastic, and aluminum cans. And of course, at every location, we encourage customers to have a weighing scale so that every category is weighed and recorded in a logbook. And of course, when we talk about materials that have a value, we should allocate a secure location that is lockable at the end of the day, so that all these things don't grow two legs at the end of the day and walk out the front door by themselves, okay? So we always encourage that you should have a dedicated space where you can store this material. For those waste generators that have huge volumes, we have such machines that we call portable compactors, but these are normally for shopping centers. Okay, so for warehouses, the volume may not be so huge, so normally these are not recommended. Over here, you see some drums, and these are actually for food waste. So certain locations that we are handling, we actually collect food waste to be sent off to a farm that converts this food waste into bioproteins as a supplement for pet food. Okay. So actually, who is high-tech waste management? We have got 25 years experience in solid waste management. If you were to speak to Ms. Rashmash, we met 25 years ago actually. She was formerly from a company called Tucson Logistics. And in fact, Mr. Kwan of Tucson Logistics is a 50% shareholder in our company. So I always like to joke to people to say that, you know, 25 years ago, when people were talking about CSR, you know, Mr. Kwan was so forward-looking that he bought into a company that's already providing waste services. So I said, you know, hats off to Mr. Kwan for that. So this is a list of the things that we provide. Number one, we have normal waste transport services. So we provide waste containers, that means skips or open top bins, and then we just collect and transfer solid waste to landfill. But that is not the how do you say, the desired outcome, okay? We prefer companies to engage here for integrated waste management programs, which means that we would like to supply labor to recover recyclables on site. Then we transport and sell this waste and recyclables that are recovered. We also can hire or rent equipment that provide this compacting services. At the end of the day, we also provide a monthly management report because this will be useful for auditing. So for those people who think they can handle waste themselves, we will happily sell them compaction, crushing, or we will consult to tell them what they need to do to handle their waste. We also provide secure depackaging, destruction, and certified waste disposal services. So that means if you have certain market returns that you do not want going back into the pasar malam, we are able to provide secure depackaging so that, you know, every step of the way to the landfill or in the destruction process is documented. So we photograph, we have a landfill to certify the disposal, okay? And also finally, we have a food waste to bioprotein conversion options. So here you see that we have a wide range of services, all geared towards the reduction of transport of waste straight to a dump site or landfill, thereby saving the emissions of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. These are some of our customers that are using our services now. So quite a number of these, the larger ones like IKEA, Campbell's, you know, they are actually using our integrated waste management services where we provide manpower, equipment, not only that, with transport services as well. Okay. So what are the benefits of doing this? We are talking about fewer waste removal trips resulting in lower carbon dioxide emissions. We are looking at compliance to Act 672, which is the Public Cleansing and Solid Waste Act of Malaysia. So this law is not totally enforced yet, but it is coming. It's in the horizon actually, and it is something that most multinationals are very concerned about. And by doing this, we can reduce the carbon footprint for your organization, and you can increase the awareness on the need to avoid landfilling. So actually, you know, when people tell us, oh, you know, what you do is very expensive. So we say that, why? Because if you have a cleaning crew and they are going to tender for the services, you can actually specify that in the upcoming tender, this will be part of your job scope. Take it or leave it, you know. And finally, from all your effort, you know, of segregating waste, you will get some income to defray the costs of sorting and consolidating the recyclables. Okay. So what if you want to do something for your company? You can invite us to do a site evaluation, and we will provide you with a concept proposal. Then we will line up this list of options available for you. Then we can activate and execute. You know, if the proposal is what you are looking for. But as a group, I think, you know, later on, what we might prefer to discuss with you is, you know, instead of each one of you having within your own facility, maybe you can appoint one of you to have a consolidation point for, you know, a particular area where we can have all our equipment and workers inside to do the sorting and the data acquisition. Okay. So for me, that is about sums it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Very interesting what you're doing. But as you were doing a presentation, my mind is really thinking about plastic, you know.
Plastics.
But don't worry, I'll ask the questions in our next round. But
Okay.
since I mentioned plastics, just what do you call, 150 tons of plastics are in the ocean, and annually we throw 12 million tons of plastic into the ocean. So when I read the statistics, the data, it scares the hell out of me. Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm wondering what do we do? We need plastics, but what do we do with it? And we know that it takes like what? For it to decompose. I don't know, someone
2 centuries.
no, 450 years actually.
Yeah.
For the plastic. So you have what do you call, confirm that with me. Okay, now without further ado, I will call upon our Dato, Dr. Amin, to share with us his thoughts, his deliberations on today's topic. Dato, Dr. Amin, all yours, bro.
Thank you. Okay, so basically, I think the earlier speakers have already covered quite a number of very interesting topics, which many people have been taking for granted and forgot that how it has been affecting the community, the environment, and more importantly, lives if you do not take care of it. Okay, I will quickly move to, oops, it's not moving. Yeah, okay. Basically, logistics, we say, is the original sharing economy, because logistics companies, logistics vehicles will somehow engage with shippers, with production houses, with farmers. It goes to various parties and everybody will be linking. So because of that, it plays a very important role in these environmental issues. Next one, if we can go. Yeah. So how do we track supply chain climate impact? There are a few companies, the larger companies have already do this. For example, Alcoa, Mittal, BHP, Billiton, Glencore, Rio Tinto, Whale, just to name a few. But these are the few companies that have done some tracking, and they are looking at how to improve and do something. But are these information be shared? Even if it's shared, does it make any sense to the general industries players? So this is also important. So if we go next. Okay, what's in a carbon footprint? A lot of people talk about carbon footprint, but when you ask most of the people in the logistics industry or anybody, nobody seems to know what is carbon footprint. So basically, if you look at simple thing, potash, for example, potash production, potash is being used in so many products at the end of the day. So it starts from where it is being mined, and then it goes into the rail, from rail to sea, then sea to road and all that. So then you calculate to where it's being sent, then you will realize that how many tons CO2 per ton of potash is being used. So that's the impact of the carbon footprint. And then let's move to the next one. Okay, considering transport alone, because a lot of people have been doing these studies, and this is, I've taken up something done in the US, where they look at a study done from Verona to Italy to Boston, and then by road and things like that, how much you can do this. Then you look at from Sonoma, California to Boston via truck or via sea, what is the impact? And all these have different impacts. But of course, you have to weigh between time requirement and sensitivity of the products and things like this. So all this have a great impact. But how many people do care? Because at the end of the day, the logistics companies are their first intention is looking at what is that my customer wants. How fast do they want it? So I don't care what I do. I meet his requirement, and that's it. I get my payment. So this has been the impetus for logistics companies throughout the world. This back to what I mentioned just now. This is the original sharing economy. Can we move next? Okay, how do we track progress to climate change? How do we measure, or should we just estimate? There's such a thing as blockchain. How many companies are using blockchain? In fact, in a previous webinar, we talked about blockchain use and how we can mitigate certain things, like what happened to the halal meat, for example. If there's a blockchain thing being used, you can actually track what's been happening. And it's not that expensive as it was 10 years ago. Today, things are more affordable. I think logistics companies and supply chain companies will have to come in and see how they can use blockchain to move on. Okay, there's been a huge effort by Massachusetts Institute of Technology, particularly a few names here mentioned. They've done quite a number of studies. They've done their own seminars and things that covers various things, tracing commodity, supply chains, and then the practices of certain logistics companies and all that. Perhaps CILT can somehow later collaborate and get some information from them, and then we can use this data because it's been done. Okay, next please. Okay, a lot of people say, what is sustainable supply chain management? Okay, we look at this thing, you can see that at the first thing we are looking at is, of course, we have to set out our objectives and governance. And then how do you move to the various aspects of doing things? How do you select your suppliers? How do you look at your supply chain performance evaluation? Monitoring capacity development, as mentioned just now by our first speaker, because no point for the truck to move in there and coming back empty. So all these are being taken care of. In fact, there's been already such a move in the early 1990, 1991 for a few companies, but it's been done in Europe. It was they tried to introduce this in Malaysia in 95, collaboration between Singapore organization and Malaysian organization, but somehow it didn't take up because, as usual, the logistics companies here at that time say, why should we outsource? Why should we this thing? After the guy steal my customer, I don't want to work with the guy. So this is the typical mindset. So we have to erase all this. Yeah. Okay, next, we can go next. All right, so as we mentioned just now, sustainability is a force for good. Maybe this is one of the things we can use for our slogan, because you're looking at how we link up the entire economy, the economic process, because without logistics, nothing can move. Until one day, we go to the time when we watch this movie, what do you call, Mr. Spark, and how they move things, zoom, and then it goes off. That will take maybe another 100 years, I'm not sure. But for the moment, now we depend on logistics. And how do you do that? So this is so important that we do this. Supply chain sustainability becomes a very important factor, and we can use this a force for good. Let's move on here. Okay, when we look at sustainability, we look at three huge things. One is the people, the next one is planet, of course, profits. For any organization, profit is important. No profit, I don't want to get involved. So, but when you look at this, there are certain areas that you're looking at, whether it's bearable, whether it is equitable, how much I'm paying to this guy as against the profit. And then the viability finally will depend on the sustainability. So this is where it comes back to a huge process. Maybe our chairman later can look at it, because every national organization must look at this. For example, when we look at the simple thing of waste, just now we're talking about waste, we compare ourselves to Singapore. They have introduced this waste management to every home some 20 years ago. Every home today, they have 3 different colored bins, one for this, one for that, one for this. We tried to introduce this in Malaysia, but we didn't introduce it to the homes of everybody. Suddenly we put it in the mall and we expect people to follow. No, they just walk around, they just chuck the thing to wherever which is not empty and things like this. So it goes back to who's going to sort this out. So we should start from the very basic, educating the families. Maybe start from school, and then slowly this becomes a culture. Important. Okay, next one. All right. Well, let's look at this because there's already been a SCORE model for many, many, many years. And what is SCORE? I'll quickly mention here. It's actually a supply chain operations reference. It's a business process reference model endorsed by the Supply Chain Council as a de facto standard. And the model is based on three major pillars. One is process modeling, the other one is performance measurements, and then best practices. And finally, what's important is uses 5 groups: plan, source, they make, deliver, and return. All this has already been incorporated in this diagnostic system many, many years ago. How do we make sure that the logistics companies engage this? Because up till today, if we move into many of the even large organizations involved in logistics, we ask them, do you understand what supply chain is? And what is the difference between supply chain and logistics? They'll be talking something that both will be connected or things like that. And they don't seem to understand how it's being done. How do they divide? And how do they use this for the betterment of the company, profits, customers' requirement, and of course, finally, the community. Yeah, next one, please. Okay, so SCORE scope, as I mentioned, it has the plan. You have to look at supplier, your company, how do you make it, and then customers' requirement. So this was touched just now. So we move on quickly. The next one. The most important idea behind a green sustainability is to implement a supply chain that is sustainable for future generation. Yeah, very easy to talk. What does it mean? So let's go to the next one. Green and sustainable supply chains take sustainable business practices into seriousness when helping organizations plot their supply chain. So, as I said, it's easy to come up with this big thing, but many people, when they practice, they don't seem to understand this because from young, this green, this sustainable thing has not been a practice. It is not in their culture. Now suddenly they've been asked to do that. But the bosses of the company will ask how much it's going to cost, how long will it take, and how much do we make? If we're going to spend more money, come on. Is there another way to do something like this and like that? This is happening in Asia in general, I'm saying. But Japan is not. And fortunately, as mentioned just now by our first speaker, which is true, China is changing for the betterment. In fact, they have allocated $11 trillion for environmental change in the next 10 years, which is huge, is it? So let's see what we can do as a smaller nation, but we should start from somewhere. Okay, next one, please. Okay, what is reverse logistics? It's been touched on this now. So it is a process of sending back the defective product. Customer sends back the product of the manufacturer, wire reverse logistics, remanufacturing, and all that. But I don't want to read all this because at the end of the day, it's been mentioned. But I like to mention this because in my early days doing logistics, we had to deal with a customer that have that sent drinks. So empty bottles, how do we collect it back? We had to haggle with the supplier, with their customers, because they are asking us to pay them to collect the thing. When we say, wait, we are collecting on your behalf, you should pay us. So along the way, there's so many things haggling about this because at the end of the day, it comes back to money. They don't want to spare some people to just collect and just do that. So what do we do? How do we come up with certain incentives for organizations to look into these practices so that you will, at the end of the day, have a good impact on the environment and the economy and the community? We can relook at it again later. Okay, supply chain operation reference just now we covered just now, but it covers, as we said, source The plan is to, from source, how do you make it and how do you deliver, then the return. So it comes back to the same thing. It's just a drawing to make people understand the reference core model. Okay, next one. Okay, reusable articles, closed loop supply chains. So this is very important because a lot of people take this for granted. Very simple thing is drinks, food, supermarket, conveyances. And then you even look at the simple thing as going to the library, taking notes, crumpling the paper and chucking it down into the waste paper basket. How does it transfer? We will be thinking that it will go to waste paper basket. No, it will be dumped into the big garbage can where everything else is mixed. Why? Because it goes back to the basic, is that people in our country have not been trained and it's not been imbued into our culture system to ensure this is done properly. Okay, next one, please. Okay. Reverse supply chain and recovery has already been mentioned. So this is something, so I have to catch up the time. Let's move on to the next one. Yeah.
You got 1 minute more, Dato.
Yeah, I know. Differences between forward and reverse also we covered. Can we skip on the last few? Environmental impact, greenhouse gas emissions, very important. The use of non-renewable sources, e-commerce impacts, huge. But what do we do? How to go about it? Because as mentioned earlier by the first speaker, yes, the pandemic has triggered a huge demand for e-commerce. Everybody have to do order by phone, order by computer and things like that. Today, as mentioned earlier, people will get used to it. They don't want to walk to the supermarket to buy things unless there are companies that have mini markets all over. So it's easy and convenient. If not, they don't want to. Everything is ordered, even food, because the pandemic has created this. But with that, then how do you ensure that the returnable things, the waste and all that are being taken care of properly? So it's very important how logistics players play an important role in this thing. So use of non-renewable sources, gasoline, cars, lights. Okay, coming to that, again mentioned earlier, there is the use of hydrogen, and it can be taken from water because we have hydrogen inside there. But I was told from as early as 15, 20 years ago, we were talking to certain universities, and one of the largest corporations or gangs that try and block this is the oil companies, because they don't want you to start implementing power using hydrogen and water. But now things are moving fairly quickly, and worldwide people are going for solar as well as battery operations. In fact, just about 3 weeks ago, I think the CEO of Volvo made an announcement that all their trucks in future will be battery operated. So this is where we got to be looking at how this is going to be implemented worldwide, especially in our country also. So effects of waste process, I don't want to touch it because already mentioned, but it goes back again to soil fertility and benefits of sustainable supply chain, how it will help the organization, not just the organization, how it will help the community and the world. The organization will have to ask, how do I participate and yet I make something out of it? This has always been the big question. Okay, next one, please. So green purchasing, this is another thing. The companies who are involved in purchasing worldwide, because we're looking at outsourced supply chain. They outsource everywhere. Sometimes this company, this country will do something, it will move to the next person, the next person will do something, and then later final one come back. So now they're questioning whether all these are going to help in the carbon footprint. Two, many of them has inserted other things in the, rather than just green, but they're saying, oh, for example, they against Malaysia, they're saying oil palm is bad because of practices that are not good for the environment. In fact, it's not. In fact, it's good. But they're using a geopolitical trade situation to induce into policies which is counterproductive. So we have to review at least from our side and then build up a bigger thing so that nationally we can also be a force to be reckoned with. Thank you. Next one. Okay, green transportation, the tire pressure, maximize travels and all that has already been mentioned by our first speaker. So we move on to green packaging, very important just now, how much people throw everything together, whether it's plastic, whether it's cardboard, whether it's paper, and then it's difficult. But let's really look at it and how to go about it. So lastly, we can move to conclusion. The demand is growing. Gas emissions is up 90% since 1900s. Transportation, unfortunately, is the largest contributor at 28%. E-commerce increased it by 20% by 2021. And 81% of US energy source, this is based on the US thing, is non-renewable. US, 81% is non-renewable. Filling up landfills. So we have to start making efforts. Locate critical issues. What are the critical issues? Review departments, set goals, collaborate. But more importantly, when we want to come up with a master plan, how do we induce a philosophy that will seep through to everybody in this country so that then they practice it voluntarily. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato. I said you got 1 minute, but you took extra 4 minutes.
Sorry.
But that's okay. Your presentation was exhaustive. You covered a lot of areas. But while you were speaking, my mind was thinking about the Suez Canal. I was wondering whether that ship from Japan is still blocking the route or not. It's costing people a lot of money. I hope there is no spill. Okay. So you touched on blockchain, which is interesting because that's the way forward. And as you rightly put it, that will be the tool that we use so that we can use that technology to check, to go back and cross-check the data. And then you also mentioned a very interesting, powerful word, which is very timely because after this, our chairman, Dato, Dr. Mohd Yusoff, is going to have his 15 minutes. You mentioned about incentive. Now, kita dengar. We listen to what Dato Mohd Yusoff has to say about the scenario of green logistics from where he's coming from, the epicenter of the future, okay? Malaysian industry government, okay, initiatives, okay, on high technology, okay, blockchain tu semua tu, I'm sure dah ada dalam tu. So without further ado, Dato, Dr. Mohd Yusoff, all yours. Please share with us, in 15 minutes, what are the interesting good news that's in store for the logistic industry. All yours, Dato. Oh, you're mute. You're on mute. Unmute.
All right.
Okay.
Okay now? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. Thank you to CILTM for this kind invitation. I also like to congratulate the CILT and also CILTM for taking this initiative to really discuss the issue of green logistics and sustainability. As you know, Malaysia is going big on green and sustainability, and I hope that in our 12 Malaysia plan, this will be given such a central treatment, and I hope there will be also come along the budget that will enable us to do so many things that we want to do. So I just like to focus on 3 key points, what I have thought and also what I've heard from the 3 excellent speakers. And of course, the 2 inspirational speeches by our presidents, international and also local. And of course, learning a lot from our savvy moderator as he pinched in a few points here and there. So I'll just like to use my time to focus on these 3 key points. I think one is that logistics is going on a head-on collision with 3 elements. One is the Sustainable Development Goals which we cannot avoid. All sectors of economies, activities have to align to sustainable development goals, not all the 17, depending on the sector that you are working on. I guess in a way, this has also been translated into some kind of business imperative. For you to operate in the future, you need to comply to many of these requirements. Second is where there is also been touched, spot here and spot there, collision with the fourth industrial revolution, which have been talked about a lot before the pandemic. And I'm glad to hear from Prof. Khaeruddin that you quote that the speed of implementation of the 4IR suddenly from 10 years to 1 year. And this has really catch many companies, by surprise. But it also helped us to find the reason for us to actually engage with many of these technologies and how are the processes that we can actually use to make our business more efficient. And third is our collision with what we call the gig economy. And you can see in our lives when we are prison at home, that we rely the distribution by newly created companies, whether it's food or whether it's retail, using motorcycles to reach our houses on time. This has not been any experiences in the past. Will this continue? And if it's continue, then we have to find a way to manage this development, because sustainability also touches on safety and touches on security. So I guess that's the first point I'd like to make, that logistics has no choice but to really respond to the developments of these three big, items for it to actually be considered as a positive contribution to the economy and also to the world. I'm glad you mentioned about planet, people, and what was the other P? But that is
profit. Planet, people, profit.
Profit, because I'm from a non-profit organization. I don't talk much about profit.
Okay.
Planet and people is very, very key. Secondly, is that I like to pick up from where the two presidents actually mentioned about the need for a policy framework for us to look at addressing these issues moving forward with green logistics and sustainability, because there are none. In Malaysia, we do not have a green logistics policy
framework,
let alone a green policy for the whole country. So this is missing, and why it's missing? Because it will take a lot of efforts to actually not only talking about one particular ministry. If we're talking about logistics, the first ministry that comes to mind is transport. But the areas, I mean, the components of a green logistics and sustainability covers many ministries, right. Education, science, and etc. So I'd like to take upon that if it comes from president, it's no suggestion, it's call for action, that we as the ASCA need now to develop for the sake of Keith, ASCA means soldiers. We are the soldiers of the CILT and CILTM, and therefore we now have to really take these challenges and respond by having a very serious either a roadmap or a blueprint or a policy response. So that I think is very, very important. Now, how do we put all these things into perspective? We have in mind what we call the first framework, FIRST, that covers a few components that is very key in terms of looking at the whole, wholesome look at a particular sector or particular economic activities. Prof K, you mentioned about maybe I know the kind of funding, the kind of incentives that with the government. I'm afraid there's not much to go for. In fact, when we look at the current national budget, it's more for reviving business, taking care of jobless people. So some of these elements can easily be sidelined by in this kind of scenario. But I'm glad, I again like to repeat that the long-term 5-year plan for the country actually takes green and sustainability as a very serious effort of the government to comply not only to the world requirements but also for the local requirements. So funding, the first F, the first letter, the first funding and incentives is very important, because what will motivate companies to engage or to practice some of these green and sustainable elements. So, while they're waiting for getting the profits, because the profit may not come overnight because of your practices. So you need to be incentivized to do this. The I is really the infrastructure and institutions. But Dr. Amin mentioned about the whole ecosystem. If we talk about the multi-modes, from ports to aviation, to shipping, to rail, to road, and etc., the infrastructure is very huge and diverse. But these are also the windows of opportunities for us to introduce green elements. So ports can actually be green by having more, energy efficient buildings, introducing the solar, as their energy source. And then, in rail, again, I think KTM will use about 100 megawatts a year, and that could easily be supplied by a renewable energy source. So these are some of the things that we are looking at to do to get some of the bigger systems to actually employ some of these renewable or more green practices. R is regulatory and policies. Back to what I said earlier about a new Green New Deal, which actually has been done by US and many other countries. It has to be a new approach altogether to look at how we can, embark on this green and sustainable journey. So it's regulation on the part of the government and also institutional, new institutions altogether to really, become the platform for the introduction of many of the new green and sustainable practices. I would think that would sort of revitalize, rejuvenate the logistic industry in many sense. Because see, the perception of logistics sometimes can be very negative. When people dump chemical in the rivers, they show the lorry that carries it, and the drums, but that's the lorry that carry it to the river. In accidents, normally involving large of our commercial trucks and etc., that is really something that we need to change. The perception of logistics needs to change. Is not only as a green and sustainable, but also as something that people perceive as positive in their community fabric. S is skill and talents, and this is where CILTM has to play a big role, because the skills that are needed for this new era is different. Somebody mentioned that we were in schools studying transport 20 or 30 years ago. None of these are mentioned at all. So we need to really look at that, and I think CILTM has to play a role in looking at the syllabus, looking at the content, and I think many of these things will come not only from transport, it will come from many other sectors as it enables our journey on logistics. Last is technology. I always put technology last because sometimes it's too overwhelmed with technology, and sometimes some people say technology has no ethics. So you need to use it for the right things, and technology has to be leveraged on in a very good way. Dr. Amin stressed on blockchain. That's something that is very useful for us to ensure that logistic activities take place as with the data that is secured, and we know everything. Like Asia use blockchain to look at their maintenance activities, so that in case of accidents, things are going. You can rely on this. But always remember, when we talk about these new policies and etc., there are unintended consequences. Prof. Khaeruddin, you mentioned about plastic. In 60s, it was as a savior. because else we cannot carry anything to go, around. But now we realize that that invention may have created a long-lasting negative challenge to our lives. It's not easy to deal with plastic. I don't think we will find the solution in the near future. And our KSN, our Chief Secretary of the Government, talks about behavioral insights. That means policies are good. But if people, our stakeholders, do not understand or do not appreciate what we are trying to do, then policies remain as policies. So we need to engage. We need to really positively engage with all our stakeholders, the government, the universities, the public, communities, and etc. So that our intention of putting up a good green logistics and sustainability plan would be something that the whole country actually welcomes very much. So I only touch on those 3 points, Prof. K and everybody else. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato. For your you have touched on all the 3 speakers, what they have raised, and you've also touched on 1 or 2 things that I have what they call injected unawareingly. But the interesting thing that you mentioned just now that needs attention from CILT, I think not just us, but globally. And probably Dato Radzak is online, he's still watching us. Maybe he should also pick that up and see whether what is happening, what is going on in other countries. And Dato Yusoff mentioned just now that we do not have a policy, not the actual green policy yet. And of course, we can understand why. A few of the other speakers earlier have already alluded to Dr. Amin. That's what he did mention that what they call it. It's all economics. Okay, at the end of the day, would we want to make this kind of investment? What you need at the end of the day for us? That kind of thing. So there are a lot of issues, or there are a lot of concerns. So, but I think after listening to Nadhir just now, and after also listening to David, it's quite interesting that the things that they're doing, and hopefully, that this will be picked up, and there'll be more concern, and there'll be more interest, and people are just not going to be just talking about it, but some policies need to be put in place, and I think it's the job. Okay, Keith, I can see you there. I know you can't hear me, but you should remind the international president that this needs to be taken up. What you call globally, while here in Malaysia, and since this is our first inaugural webinar, and very interesting. I have a few questions actually, and when I was reading the question and answer, there are also a lot of questions there, but I hope you guys can answer it. But I think we are a bit, how you call it, over time. I'm trying to manage the time here. Okay, Reshma, are you listening to me? Reshma?
Yes, I am. I'm listening.
So, do we still have time, or should we just wrap it up?
Maybe you can take one question at least from the Q&A, so at least attendees don't feel left out.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll do that.
3 questions from one person, we can wrap all 3 in one.
Yeah. There's one question here from Sabaria Muhammad. There she has 2 questions. Okay, in Malaysia scenario, where almost 80% of logistic operators are small operators, any strategies or facilitations to motivate sustainable operations? I leave it to the panelists. Anyone of you would like to respond to that? Dato or Dr. Amin? Who would like to respond to this question? Dato Yusoff?
Yes.
Dato Amin. Okay.
All right. At this moment, I think many years ago, the first strategy was to create a combination of smaller companies into one, so that they can do multiple things, and there were incentives given. But then later they move up the ladder. They say if you come up with new technology or new way of doing things, and you invest in certain infrastructure for that, you can get rebates on your taxes for doing this. But how to create smaller companies to become bigger companies? I think it goes back to, from the start, the professional bodies like us, how we train the people. And then now you have various employees who are now trying to come in to bring in students to have practical training before they move on and do their own thing. So again, they need some incentive. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Dato. Okay, there one more question, one last question before we wrap up. This is from Saudara Mama Azamdin. He says, how do you encourage, again, motivate? How do you encourage or motivate your organizational members, i.e. your employees, okay, to embrace green practices? Anyone would like to pick that up? David, maybe you want to pick that up? How do you encourage your employees to embrace green practices? Because you are there, you are encouraging green practice. I can't hear you, can't hear you. You're please unmute.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, people only do things either for pleasure or the avoidance of pain, you know.
Or for profit.
Yeah. So to me is that, you know, especially in terms of waste management, or, you know, for this kind of sustainability issues, there's only one way to do it. I think you really can't motivate people to do it because they can't see that far. The only way to do it is to have some kind of a penalty system, you know, unfortunately. And then also the other way is to reinforce people's good behavior by catching them when they're doing something correctly. So in other words, like us, we are working with a solid waste department now. And we are telling the solid waste department, you know, we have got a list of 10 companies that are actually fully complying with your Solid Waste Act. Can you please acknowledge their dedication to all these kinds of sustainable practices? So what they're saying is, after Raya, they're going to provide all these companies with a star rating. So companies who are partially compliant get 1 star, fully compliant get 5 stars, so they can proudly display it in their office or in their company profile or whatever, you know. So for the individuals, that's depending on the management. We always say that nothing will happen unless the instruction for sustainability matters come from the top downwards. Okay, if the boss themselves does not require, yeah, it will never work.
Okay, all right. Any other comments from the panelists? Dato. Yeah. Okay.
I had the opportunity to attend the green and sustainability seminar, but it was done before the COVID, organized by MOT. So one of the speaker is from Nippon Express, and he says they are embarking on a very serious program on you know, carbon footprint.
Carbon footprint, okay.
Because they joined that regime of DHL by 2030, I think. You have this zero carbon footprint. So what they did, they invest millions of dollars by using IoT in their trucks, and the artificial intelligence will determine or will make sure that the driver will change their gear at a time where that artificial intelligence shows at that range of I think rams.
Okay, at that moment,
At the moment.
So all done by AI,
AI, artificial intelligence. So this is one. The other one is like what David was saying, you know, big, nice what they call not poster, certificate.
Okay.
That I already request Keith to talk to Kerry that we want to have this green campaign, nice, you know, certificate to be given to those who have been, you know, supporting us and doing. that will include CILT Malaysia, you know, big, nice
poster.
Not poster, certificates and all that. So these are all motivations.
Right.
But the IoT can really determine. And when I ask him, in short, I ask him, hey, you are spending millions. Can you make money out of it? Definitely. We spend millions, we get money. Everybody coming to us. Because they know that, you know, we are something that is green transport and all that. So the whole idea here is not only that we encourage and motivate, but also by the use of technology. And this is where Dato Yusoff role, you know, to look into it. Even to change the speed, the gear, it must be done within that range. So that there will no combustion and you know, smokes and all that. So I think that makes sense actually. Right. I heard that really from the managing director of Nippon Express. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dato. Okay. With that remark from the international president comment, I now like to. I think it's time for us to wrap up. And saya ingin mengucapkan banyak terima kasih. Ya. And thank you very much for those who have joined us for the discussions. And
Prof. Dale. Just now there's a question about what people do in other parts of the world in terms of, we are talking about green practice and all. Maybe Keith can highlight as one, give him 1 or 2 minutes to highlight, if there's any.
Okay, since the international president has requested, Keith, where are you? I give you 2 minutes before I wrap up. Keith?
I'll be very quick. I'll be very quick.
All right.
No, thanks. I just put so very interesting today. I think what's interesting is that the topics are very common across the world. So whether we're talking, as Nadhir was talking about, transport vehicles, planning vehicles better, driving benefits that way, or whether we talk about waste, they're all very similar issues. And I think I just say we've got a real opportunity in CILT to work together on it across the world. As an organization, our voice can be heard. We can make a difference, and we've got this focus over the next 3 months where we'll be, so share, I do encourage you to share stories, share successes. We've had some of that today already. Share issues as well. And we're centrally trying to coordinate that, bring that together. I think we do need to consider how we influence governments, both locally, so in Malaysia and in the other countries. How do we influence businesses as well? So I think I just say today has been a great start to this campaign, because we've only just started the sustainability campaign. So Malaysia's got in there first with the webinar, and let's join together. And I think soldiers was the other thing that Datuk Dr. Sulaiman mentioned, because we can be soldiers together on this. So good. Thank you, Prof. K.
Okay, thank you for your comments, David. Okay, I'd like to, before I forget, I'd like to thank all the panelists. Brother Nadhir, Ashafiq, Director of the Lorry, Mr. David Zone, Director of High-Tech Waste Management. Thank you very much, sir. And of course, Dato Dr. Amin, and our chairman for today, actually. His job was supposed to actually wrap up what everybody has said, and he has done it superbly well. and Dato Mohd Yusoff, who is CEO of MITE. And thank you, Dato International President Radzak, who's still with us, Keith, and everybody else, okay, who has joined us in this webinar session. Myself am excited, but actually there's a lot of things that we need to say, we need to discuss, but I keep banding myself, no, I'm just moderating. I'm not supposed to speak anything, otherwise I will take up the time of all the other speakers. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much again. And I now like to hand over the session to Rashma. Are you going to close it, or I'm going to close it?
You were supposed to close it, but I think
okay. I've already closed it.
All right.
Thank you very much. I look forward again to have a discussion with all of you who joined our inaugural webinar today. Thank you very much again. Wabillahi taufiq warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.